The 30-minute video was posted on YouTube Monday and quickly went viral. The work of the nonprofit group Invisible Children, it purports to document atrocities committed by militant Joseph Kony and his Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda and Central Africa beginning in the 1980s.
For 26 years, Kony has been kidnapping children into his rebel group, the LRA. Turning the girls into sex slaves. And the boys into child soldiers. He makes them mutilate people's faces. And he forces them to kill their own parents. And this is not just a few children. It's been over 30,000 of them.
Over the course of the week, the number of views on YouTube alone skyrocketed from a few thousand on Monday to more than 38 million today. It was most popular with young people ages 13 to 24.
My son Gavin has never...
The video features Invisible Children co-founder Jason Russell explaining Kony's actions to his young son Gavin.
Joseph Kony, he has an army, okay? And what he does is he takes children from their parents and he gives them a gun to shoot, and he makes them shoot and kill other people.
But they're not going to do what he says because they're nice guys, right?
Yeah, they don't want to do what he says, but he forces them to do bad things. What do you think about that?
Sad.
The campaign against Kony is not new. In 2005, the International Criminal Court indicted him for crimes against humanity and war crimes. Last October, President Obama sent 100 U.S. Special Forces to Africa to aid in Kony's capture. But Invisible Children says it wants Kony and his crimes to be so well known that global pressure will force the U.S. and other nations to do much more.
We are targeting 20 culture makers and 12 policymakers to use their power for good. Let's start with the 20 culture makers. Celebrities, athletes, and billionaires have a loud voice, and what they talk about spreads instantly. Then we're going after policymakers, the ones that have the authority to see Kony captured.
It urges viewers to contact these 40 prominent people through Twitter, telephone, and other means, and pressure them to speak out or act. But the campaign also has generated an online outburst of criticism of Invisible Children for its fundraising methods and its message, among other things. For example, a blogger in Britain's independent newspaper argued Wednesday that the group should also be concerned about government abuses in Uganda. He wrote, "When a bad guy like Kony is running riot for years on end, raping and slashing and seizing and shooting, then there is most likely another host of bad guys out there letting him get on with it." In response, Invisible Children said it does not condone human rights abuses by anyone. And for more about the global phenomenon of this video and the larger story in Uganda, we turn to Amira Woods. She tracks Africa developments at the Institute for Policy Studies. And Dawn Arteaga, a digital strategist for the public relations firm Porter Novelli in Washington. Welcome to you both. Dawn Arteaga, beginning with you. How big a deal, how remarkable a phenomenon is this video in the world of social media?
I have to say, as far as we can tell, this is unprecedented. Porter Novelli has a great metrics team in New York. We've been tracking this very closely. We can't find a comparison video that has gone so big so quickly.
So tell us the path this took. I mean, it did go on another website, Vimeo, late last week, I think, but starting with YouTube, just on Monday.
Right.
How was it moved around?
Well, it's been on YouTube, as you said, about 3 days. And as we saw in the video, reached about 40 million views. It's been spread by celebrities, Facebook, Twitter. They've used every tool in the social media toolkit to get this out. And it's unprecedented, the growth that it's had.
What is it? Because when you go on YouTube, you can see the ages that it most appeals to. And they're, girls 13 to 17 and 18 to 24 for boys in 13 to 17. What is it about this video that appeals to teenagers?
Well, I think it's simple in nature. What it's asking is for people to spread the word, which is something that's very suited to social media. And it's giving them a huge reward for doing that. By making Kony famous, as they say, they can stop children from being killed. So the reward is huge, and it's very well suited to social media.
I'm going to get back to whether that reward can really be fulfilled. But first, Amira Woods, tell us more about Joseph Kony. How did the Liberation Army start? What were its political aims?
Well, the Lord's Resistance Army started in northern Uganda, and as is often the case, it is communities where people have been marginalized economically and politically. We have to keep in mind, Joseph Kony came into power around the same time as Museveni, the president of Uganda. He's been around since the 1980s now, and it was really a quest for political power, couched in, again, Lord's Resistance Army, a lot of language around religion, around rights of people. But what we have seen is a real deterioration of rights, the abduction of children, as is quite frankly well documented in the video. I think what is not shown in the video is the other part of this picture, which is a Ugandan military that has also been tremendously abusive in terms of the rights of its own people.
As that blog said. Yes. And how vigorous have the efforts been to capture him? Here's somebody who was indicted, 7 years ago by the International Criminal Court.
Well, I think we have to recognize that ultimately, Invisible Children is calling for a military intervention by the U.S. and others. And that military intervention was tried before. It was tried before. Back in 2008, it was called Operation Lightning Thunder, reported well in the New York Times and elsewhere, where the U.S., using military forces, went in and working with the Ugandan militaries. What we saw, essentially, was Ugandan civilians caught in the crossfire. Huge escalation in deaths at that time. A military operation that, in fact, failed was never reviewed, never scrutinized, and now a call for essentially young people to go all out and essentially support yet another attempt at a military intervention.
Tell us a little bit, Don Arteaga, about the criticism now online, because that's one of the points of criticism, that you're asking young people to call for military intervention. What else have people been saying?
Well, they've been criticizing that. They've been criticizing the transparency of the organization, whether
financially,
right, where the money really is going, that people are going to start donating now. They've been criticizing this issue. Is this the right issue for so many people to focus on in a world full of other problems? But I think really at the root of this, what's interesting is that we're seeing that this criticism is leading to more interest in the video and in the organization.
Is this being seen by other advocacy groups as some kind of a model?
Well, it absolutely should be seen as a model. I think, we've looked at comparable campaigns. We all remember the Old Spice commercials from 2010 that were hugely popular on YouTube. In the same period of time, over the course of the first 3 days that campaign launched, they only had half the number of views that this campaign has. And we're talking about a 30-minute video. On YouTube, the sweet spot we usually say is around 2 minutes.
So where is this leading? That's the question. Where is this going? I mean,
well, it could go in many different directions. Ultimately, the ask in Invisible Children's video is for U.S. military intervention to support the Ugandan military in its operations. Again, to apprehend Joseph Kony, whether in Uganda or in other bordering countries. I think ultimately what we have to say is that there's an enormous opportunity when almost 40 million people have viewed this video. Is it possible to turn that around, to pivot somehow, to have even, for example, attention paid on the International Criminal Court? After all, the U.S. has not signed nor ratified the International Criminal Court.
Well, and there also
be an opportunity to educate people on those basic principles of international governance, of international norms, rules of the road, however you call it, that bring about a better world.
And not to mention all the other just problems in Africa.
Well, problems, but also opportunities. What we see, not only in Tunisia and Egypt, but what we see around the continent is people who are taking their destiny in their own hands. How can we use the technology, use the new media and social media in ways that help young people, 13 to 24, reach out to support young people right there in Africa to have direct contact, direct dialogue, and direct engagement?
So, Dawn, back to you. Do you see a scenario for getting from this new awareness, I mean, they've already succeeded in making him way more famous than he was, certainly,
Yes.
to actually action that in the end will affect the lives of African children, which is the ostensible purpose here?
Well, it's certainly possible. We've seen social media be a huge catalyst for change in Egypt, where it brought down Mubarak.
But it got people into the streets there.
It did. It did. And this is very different. When you're talking about 13 to 17-year-old girls in the United States, you're not going to possibly have the same results as in Egypt. But I think the scale that this has reached in such a short period of time is promising.
All right, we have to leave it there. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.